All day, Dr. Ian Roberts, Superintendent of Des Moines Public Schools, was arrested by ICE, detained by ICE this morning. Now, hundreds of people have gathered here in downtown Des Moines demanding his release.
Democrats just found a new Maryland dad. He's a superintendent from Iowa, actually. Guyana. Ian Roberts. He's been here since 1999, and he's got a criminal record. Even Biden tried to deport him, but wasn't able to pull it off without Homan. He's a former track star, but he couldn't outrun the canines. Once he saw the agents coming, he took off and tried hiding in a bush. ICE found him and his car filled with $3 grand in cash, a loaded gun, and a hunting knife. Bad hombre, right? Wrong. Michelle Obama's former chief of staff is the chair of the school board, and she's running for Senate, and she's riding with Roberts.
It seems fitting to take a page out of Dr. Roberts' book and ask the community to engage in radical empathy as we work through this situation together.
Roberts made $300 grand a year. The board voted to suspend the illegal with pay. But then once everybody found out about the story, they yanked his six-figure salary. And sorry about that, Ian. Roberts has been working in schools across the country for decades. Before Iowa, he was superintendent in Pennsylvania, where his district was sued for nearly $500,000. Roberts was accused of sex discrimination, promoting unqualified women over men. We call that DEI. How is an illegal with a record working in a school? Who's vetting these people? We don't know. We're just happy he got iced.
Boy. So we got to follow up on the bombshell news story involving the illegal immigrant who became a superintendent of a major school district in Des Moines, Iowa. Yes, we're talking about an illegal immigrant that became a superintendent, the head of a major school district, getting paid around $300,000 taxpayer dollars per year as an illegal immigrant. It really shows you that you can basically become anything in this country if you're here illegally, right? There's nothing stopping you at all, apparently, from becoming, let's say, for example, a truck driver or a police officer, or in this case, a superintendent, right? You can become all of these things as an illegal immigrant in this country. And even more bombshell news involving this guy, Ian Roberts. Apparently, you can register to vote and vote in our election, something that Democrats called a far-right conspiracy theory. But it turns out, once again, that the far-right conspiracy theories about illegals voting in our elections, it turns out that wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was just common sense, because we know why Democrats go out of their way to make sure we don't have election integrity is because they want illegals to vote. And then lo and behold, come to find out, we got an example of, again, what could be an illegal that has at the very least registered to vote, which means that he probably was voting in our elections. And nobody should be surprised to hear what this guy was registered as. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
There are mounting questions about how an illegal immigrant who has faced criminal charges and deportation orders was able to serve as a Baltimore City principal and most recently as the head of Iowa's largest school district. ICE agents arrested Ian Roberts of Guyana on Friday after they say that he took off in his car, dumped it, and then ran into a wooded area. ICE says he was found with a loaded weapon and $3,000 in cash. Roberts also had a long criminal past in the United States. In 1999, he overstayed his student visa. A year later, Roberts was charged with weapons possession, and in 2024, an immigration judge issued a final order of removal. Well, now questions are mounting about how he was able to work for years without authorization.
So when they enter this individual's information into their system in order to get paid, to pay taxes and the like, all sorts of red flags should have been prompted there. The question is, did he provide a fraudulent social security number and was operating as someone else?
Again, I wouldn't be surprised, because remember, these illegals are getting social security numbers, right? Democrats were importing illegals into the country, right? Letting them come through the border and giving them social security numbers so that they can go and work and to get jobs. Now, again, common sense would suggest that, hey, if they can get a social security number, then they're getting driver's licenses, they're getting all type of documentation that would suggest that they're in the country legally, even though they're not, right? And again, we have a situation that seems to be unfolding like that. All right, y'all, quick break from the show. because this is important. Look, we talk a lot here about standing up for yourself, not letting big corporations, the government, or anybody else push you around. But what happens when real life hits, car accidents, workplace injuries, medical mistakes, and suddenly you're the little guy going up against a massive insurance company? Well, that's where Morgan & Morgan comes in. There's a reason reporters never run out of breaking news. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. They've recovered over $25 billion for 500,000 clients with more than 1,000 lawyers nationwide, and they're built on one simple idea. For the people. That means when you're hurt, you don't pay them a dime up front. They only get paid if you win. And trust me, these big companies have teams of big lawyers working against you. You need somebody just as powerful fighting for you. When you hire Morgan & Morgan, it's like hiring a legal army that has your back. If you're injured because of somebody else's negligence, you deserve to be paid. So if you've been hurt in an accident, at work, or anywhere in between, don't roll the dice alone. You can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. You can start your claim now by clicking the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen from your phone's camera. Because at the end of the day, protecting yourself and your family isn't just common sense, it's conservative values in action.
Roberts has been placed on administrative leave by the Des Moines School Board.
And back in Maryland, Roberts' ties to Baltimore City schools are under review, but concerns are now shifting beyond the classroom as state records suggest the non-citizen may have been registered to vote. Tonight, Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor pressing election officials and school leaders for some answers. Rebecca.
Yeah, Mary, in Maryland, you can look up anyone's voter registration information online. And tonight we're learning Ian Roberts appears to be listed despite his immigration status.
Wow.
A high-profile ICE arrest in Iowa, now raising questions here in Maryland. Ian Roberts' extensive career in education includes serving as the principal at Friendship Academy of Science and Technology in Baltimore City. He also graduated from Coppin State University. But federal immigration officials claim the Guyana native overstayed that student visa in 1999. Tonight, Fox 45 sending questions to city schools asking, what documents did BCPS require to verify Roberts' work eligibility? And was he legally employed while at the district? A spokesperson only willing to confirm he spent nearly 8 years with the school system. Meanwhile, questions now spanning beyond the classroom. The same birthday and Maryland address attached to this traffic citation Roberts received in Iowa, matching this Maryland voter registration, publicly available on the state's website.
Well, they always say this never happens, and then it happens.
Delegate Matt Morgan says non-citizens voting in Maryland elections has long worried Republican lawmakers.
The state board election really never cleans its voter rolls. So there could be thousands of people on here. We have no idea.
Facts. And again, this is why Democrats boo-hoo on and cry about Republicans even just doing the basics when it comes to voter integrity, right? They scream far-right conspiracy because Republicans just want an ID, right? Democrats are opposed to an ID, which is the most basic form of election integrity, right? Just an ID, okay? To make sure that you are actually eligible to vote, right? Or that you are an American citizen. Like, they're opposed to citizenship verification processes, any type of documentation or standards being applied to our voting process in order to make sure that we don't have illegals voting in our elections. And again, we're finding out why. Well, the reason why is because, at least in this case, right, this illegal was registered as a Democrat, right? An active Democrat voter in a blue state. Now, again, why don't they want to clean or purge the voter rolls, right, is because of that reason, right? That's why they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it because they want to allow illegals who, again, should be purged, right, who should not be able to vote. They want to allow them to better vote anyways, right? They want to allow as many people who should not be voting as possible to vote in elections. In fact, the Democrat Party relies on as many people voting in elections who should not be voting, not just illegals. I'm talking about down to uneducated folks, right? Let's be real. Democrats want as many people to vote as possible because it's very easy to sell rob Peter to pay Paul politics, right? It's very easy to say, hey, you know, all your problems in life are because somebody has more than you. you're going to get a lot of ignorance, right? You're going to get a whole lot of ignorance to vote based off that, right? Look at the success of Zoran Mondami. His whole campaign is, well, the rich having more than you is why, you don't have as much, or why you're suffering, or why your life is not as good as you believe it should be. It's because somebody else has more than you do. So we got to take from them and give to you, right? And again, that's very attractive to bottom feeders, right? To people who, again, aren't very intelligent, who don't really understand how capitalism works. They don't want to work hard. They don't want to get it out in the mud. They don't want to do it. They want the government to give them some type of handout, right? Some type of assistance that they may or may not actually really need, right? When it comes to illegals, they benefit from the assistance as well, too. Now, again, the problem that Democrats don't understand is that having a welfare state and mass illegal immigration into the country is not sustainable, right? You can't have a welfare state and mass illegal immigration, right? It doesn't work, okay? You can't do it. But the Democrats are hell-bent on keeping the illegals on our social safety nets, and the reason why is because they know that it helps them get votes, right? When they're taking care of these illegals, giving them free Medicaid, okay, giving them food stamps, stuff like that. Yeah, when you're taking care of them, okay, when they're living off the government, they're going to be incentivized to at least try to vote for individuals who are going to maintain that, right? So, again, I'm not surprised to see this. The question is, how widespread, how prevalent is this? If this guy, right, if this guy can be in the country illegally, become a principal, become a superintendent of a major school district, register to vote as a Democrat, and vote in our elections, how widespread is this problem? I guarantee you, this problem is everywhere, right? It is especially in these blue states, And that is why they don't want any basic election integrity laws, any type of voter ID. They don't want it, okay? Because they want the illegals to vote in our elections. And that's exactly what they're doing, right? Again, this story right here, counterproof and evidence. They said that this never happens. It never happens, right? This is what they told us. But again, we see that it in fact does happen, okay?
A state audit in 2023, finding over 2,400 potentially deceased voters and more than 300 duplicate registrations on Maryland's voting rolls. In 2025, the DOJ requesting the state's voter registration data. Instead, Maryland's state administrator of elections writing back, demanding to first know, quote, whether the voter registration list would be used for enforcement of immigration laws against Maryland residents.
Why wouldn't you want to turn over the voter rolls for that? How is immigration enforcement using our voter rolls? I mean, obviously that means there's multiple people that are registered to vote.
Tonight, Fox 45 sending questions to the State Board of Elections asking if Roberts was registered, what the verification process is to ensure only U.S. citizens can vote, and what safeguards are in place to detect and remove non-citizens on the rolls. So far, no response.
Yeah, so nobody's responding. The school's not responding. You have the officials that are in charge of voter registration. They're not responding. Nobody wants to answer any questions, right? Nobody wants to answer any question about how in the world did this guy become a superintendent? How did he become a principal? How was he employed? How did he register to vote? How did all this happen? Nobody wants to answer any questions. It's telling. It's very telling.
The last 5 years, there's been a huge influx. Millions of illegal immigrants have flooded the country. A considerable amount of them have come to Maryland. To think that they just sit at home on election day is naive.
Facts.
Morgan adds this is exactly why he's pushing for legislation requiring voters to show a Maryland ID at the polls, along with verifying signatures on mail-in ballots.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, we need to go even further than that. They should be required to verify citizenship because we know the illegals can get IDs, right? The Democrats are handing out IDs, driver's licenses, all types of stuff to illegals left and right, right? Driver's license. That's what they're doing. So it needs to go further than that. Again, if this guy was able to do this, I think this problem is very widespread. Again, we've talked about illegals becoming truck drivers. How does that happen, right? How does an illegal who can't even speak English, right? They can't even read English signs. They can't read English, can't speak English, don't know our language. They can apparently get CDLs, right? Pass the test and become truck drivers, right? Thanks to states like California. Apparently, they can also become police officers, right? They can be law enforcement. Again, how does that happen? That's the question that needs to be asked. And it seems as if we're not getting the answers. But regardless, I think stories like this are an example of, once again, the so-called right-wing conspiracy theories were correct. That we do have illegals who are registered to vote, who are likely voting in our elections, and they're able to essentially have the American dream, right? You don't even need citizenship at this point. What does citizenship mean anymore, right? What do you get for being a citizen of the United States that an illegal doesn't get, right? Apparently you don't get anything. Apparently, as an illegal immigrant, systemic racism in this country, right, is so weak, right? It's so non-existent that a black illegal immigrant, right, black as he can be, okay, Negroid genes strong, right, okay. This guy can not only come to this country and find massive success, but also register to vote as an illegal. But you mean to tell me that this country is so racist? Again, this guy, he's in Iowa. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.